In Southeast Asia, a small nation holds the rare distinction of being one of the richest countries not only in Asia, but also in the world. Yes, we are talking about Singapore, a small island nation with a total land area of 735 square kilometers and a total population of 6.04 million. It has already overtaken London and become the fourth wealthiest city in the world. And this country is now home to 244,800 resident millionaires, 336 centimillionaires, and 30 billionaires with an investable wealth of $1 billion or more. But they lack a critical resource: fresh water. Singapore's total renewable freshwater resources of 0.6 cubic kilometers is a serious issue for a highly dense urban nation. Even with a rainfall of 2,400 millimeters per year, a United Nations study in 2006 ranked Singapore 170th rank in terms of freshwater availability. Through systematic planning, Singapore became self-sufficient in providing approximately 440 million gallons of water daily to its people. In this video, we will explore how Singapore achieved water self-sufficiency, or how they traveled from this situation to this situation, and what we can learn from them. Although Singapore is a small country, it has a rich history. In the olden days, Singapore was known as Temasek and Singapura. Its history is mentioned in Chinese records and Malaya annals. Singapore, with its deep natural port, is strategically located on the ancient maritime trade route that connects China, East Asia, India, and the Middle East. This geographic position led to power struggles between different powers at various periods. The Srivijaya Empire had effective roots in these islands, and the mighty Chola Navy utilized its island as a port. The modern history of Singapore began when Sir Thomas Stamford Raffles arrived in Singapore in 1818. He identified its true potential as a natural harbor located in a strategic location. Sir Raffles pitched the idea of a new colony to the then Governor-General of India, Lord Hastings. The East India Company approved the idea of securing British trade through the Strait of Malacca in 1819. From ancient times until the British colonization of Singapore, natural aquifers and rivers provided sufficient water. But when Singapore started to grow and become one of the world's most important ports, the issue of water scarcity arose. As a result, the colonial government started to inquire about solutions because they realized the importance of water security for the evolution and growth of their newly founded free port. When the island began its growth, the existing sources came under pressure, and this situation led to the development of a municipal water supply. The origin of Singapore's waterworks can be traced back to roughly 1857, when a philanthropist, Mr. Tan Kim Seng, made a donation of $13,000 to create a water supply line to the town from the current Mac Ritchie Reservoir area. Those days, it was an earth embankment to impound water. Before this development, in 1822, a small reservoir was made at Fort Canning to support the water needs. When Sir Raffles reached the island, rivers, streams, and wells provided water to its inhabitants. Later, pollution contaminated most existing sources, making the water crisis a real issue. Now, the mere water supply lines will not be helpful without sufficient water. So, to increase the water supply, an earth dam was made in the Kallang Valley in 1867. In 1885, a cast iron pipe was laid from Kallang Valley to the town. When the government realized this was insufficient, they improved it twice between 1890 and 1904. In 1922, the modified project was renamed Mac Ritchie after James Mac Ritchie, the municipal engineer. The capacity of the reconstructed reservoir was increased to 600 million gallons. Even with this, 600 million gallons of water was still a problem. In 1910, the Kallang River Reservoir, with a capacity of 757 million gallons, was built. In 1922, it was renamed Pierce Reservoir to honor Robert Pierce. A third one, Seletar, was constructed in 1920. The three reservoirs together had a total capacity of approximately 2,100 million gallons and a daily supply capacity of 17.5 million gallons. To meet the additional needs, an agreement was signed with the Sultan of Johor in Malaysia on December 5, 1927. The pipeline was not a problem because the causeway between Singapore and Malaysia was completed in 1924. In 1932, Malaysia began supplying water. To cater for the needs, Gunung Pulai's treatment plant's capacity was increased between 1937 and 1941. They also created a subsidiary reserve to feed the Pontian Reservoir in Johor. According to this agreement, Singapore was not required to pay for raw water, but was obligated to pay rent for the land on which it exercised the full and exclusive rights to store and treat water. Everything went well until the Second World War. During the Japanese occupation of Singapore, the pipeline was damaged, resulting in an over-reliance on the reservoir. Following the war in 1950, the British government established a committee to assess the availability of additional water resources and to develop an alternative solution to counter an emergency water cutoff from Johor. The experience during the fall of Singapore forced them to think in this way. The group projected a growth in population from 1 million in 1950 to 2 million in 1970, which will result in an increase in water consumption to 225 liters per capita per day from 140 liters per capita per day. They proposed constructing central storage reservoirs in rivers such as Alexandra and Pandan, with a storage capacity of 600 million gallons. Other suggestions included in the report were rainwater harvesting, the construction of additional wells, and the effective management of groundwater resources. In 1959, the government commissioned the groundwater system at Bedok, but the result was a disaster. The projected output was 10 million gallons per day, but in reality, the yield was just 0.75 million gallons per day, and the project became a white elephant. The government also tried to increase the supply capacity from the Teberu and Johor rivers to meet water demand. The City Council and Johor government signed two additional agreements in 1961 and 1962. These agreements, known as the Teberu Water Agreement and the Johor River Water Agreement, were attempts to solve water scarcity. However, due to various reasons, including below-average rainfall, Singapore declared water rationing in 1961 and 1963. On August 9, 1965, Singapore officially became an independent nation, and water scarcity was a major problem for them. So, the new government, led by Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, began to implement innovative plans to address the water problem, and they succeeded in it. After independence, Singapore, a small country with a GDP of 8.8 billion Singapore dollars, needs to take care of its 1.9 million population. Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew and his team had bigger dreams. To execute his dream, Singapore needs a successful water policy and long-term water security. To ensure this, they used different strategies, mainly 4 national tap strategies. The first one was they had the political willpower. to negotiate and include the water agreements of 1961 and 1962 in Clause 14 of the Malaysian Constitutional Amendment of August 9, 1965. This clause ensured the water from Malaysia to Singapore. Now we will explore how this water agreement works. The first agreement of 1961 confers on Singapore the exclusive right to draw and use water not only from the Gunung Pulai reservoirs, but also from the Tebro and Skudai rivers. The second one grants rights to draw up to 250 million gallons of water from the Johor River. Under the water agreement, Singapore pays 3 cents for every 1,000 gallons of raw water or untreated water, and the Johor government pays Singapore 50 cents for every 1,000 gallons of treated water. However, the actual cost that Singapore spends to create 1,000 gallons of treated water is 2.40 Malaysian ringgits, and to sell at 50 cents, Singapore absorbs a subsidy of 1.90 Malaysian ringgits per 1,000 gallons. The agreement also gives an option to revise the price after 25 years. But in the 1986 to 1987 period, the price was not revised, and if it was revised, the Malaysian government had to pay a higher price for treated water. In June 1988, Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew and Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad signed a memorandum of understanding to provide treated water beyond the 250 million gallons per day under a new pricing formula. But the price of raw water remained similar to the 1962 agreement. Now, in this system of water import from Malaysia, some problems may arise in future. The first one is that Malaysian waters originate from a reservoir that relies on rainfall. In the event of a drought, a severe water crisis may arise, leading to water rationing. Second is the fact that the water comes from another country. On August 9, 1965, Prime Minister Tunku Abdul Rahman said, "If Singapore's foreign policy is prejudicial to Malaysia's interests, we could always bring pressure to bear on them by threatening to turn off the water in Johor." This statement prompted Mr. Lee Kuan Yew not only to think, but also to act quickly to achieve water self-sufficiency. The first agreement expired in 2001, and the Singapore government didn't renew it because of its successful policy. By 2061, when the second agreement expires, Singapore will be self-sufficient in water, eliminating the need for imported water. The second strategy was to develop local catchments and collect fresh and clean water. This is the second one in the 4 national taps. In 1965, only 3 reservoirs supplied the island's water needs. So the government decided to develop more reservoirs to collect fresh water. But there was a problem. In 1965, the rivers were in polluted condition. The work for reservoirs started with the creation of PUB in 1963 to supply water, electricity, and gas. During the pre-independence era, the City Council was entrusted with the duty to supply water, and in 1963, the PUB, or Public Utilities Board, was formed. PUB was the primary statutory agency responsible for managing the water supply, sewerage, and drainage networks in Singapore. The PUB started to develop the existing reservoirs. In 1969, the Seletar Reservoir was enlarged 35-fold to create the Upper Seletar Reservoir, and in 1975, the Pierce Reservoir was reconstructed to create the Upper Pierce Reservoir. In 1971, the idea of creating the Bedok Reservoir was proposed. To avoid pollution from newly developing residential areas, PUB followed a different approach. They indirectly increased the catchment area. So, the runoff water from the lower Seletar Water Catchment Reservoir can be sent to Bedok Reservoir. This was only the beginning of a reservoir integration scheme that connects the reservoirs through a system of pipelines. The excess water from one reservoir will be pumped into another reservoir rather than being allowed to flow into the sea. Usually, in other countries, the primary user of water will be the agriculture sector, but in the case of Singapore, it is the industrial sector. To support the industrial water needs, Singapore decided to supply low-quality water. For this, they engaged the UN Economic Commission for Asia and the Far East as a consultant. In 1966, Jurong Industrial Waterworks was built by the Singapore Economic Development Board to supply low-quality water to industries that did not require potable water. In 1971, a water planning unit was constituted under the Prime Minister's office to survey new conventional and unconventional sources of water. In 1972, the first Water Master Plan was presented. The main objectives of the water plan were to reduce dependency on imported water, increase water storage capacity, expand the water catchment area, implement pollution control measures, and explore and utilize unconventional sources, such as desalinated and recycled water. Singapore also drafted the Drainage Master Plan to create an effective drainage network. Without a proper drainage system, you can't protect freshwater reservoirs from contamination. Their strategy was to reclaim their existing polluted rivers. Some people thought that it was impossible. Now, Mr. Lee, his government and the people of Singapore have united to make the impossible possible. In 1977, the Prime Minister launched a 10-year-long program to clean and reclaim the existing rivers of Singapore, and only clean rivers can act as feeders for freshwater reservoirs. PM himself participated in cleaning activities for his new country, and this massive cleaning exercise was done by different agencies together, like PUB, HBD, Urban Redevelopment Authority, and Port Authority, and each was given a specific function. During these years, polluting activities located along the riverbanks were either phased out or relocated. For example, farms with more than 100 pigs each were given the option to resettle, and small farms were required to adopt other non-polluting forms of farming. A total of 610 pig farms and 480 duck farms existed in proximity to these rivers. The next source of pollution was street vendors and food vendors. The government later relocated to other designated places with proper sewerage facilities. At one point, the Prime Minister warned that anyone who failed to perform satisfactorily or placed obstructions to achieve this goal would have to answer for it. For smooth resettlement, the government provided compensation to all affected persons and businesses in cash and better housing. All the zinc and wooden houses were dismantled, and their inhabitants were relocated to better houses with improved sanitation facilities. To maintain cleanliness, the government implemented strict rules like Water Pollution Control and Drainage Bill and the Environmental Public Health Act. They conducted regular inspections, and violators were penalized with fines and speedy trials. First-time offenders for public littering were charged a fine of 500 Singapore dollars and 2,000 Singapore dollars for subsequent convictions. Damaging the public sewerage is considered a serious offense that can result in a fine of up to 20,000 Singapore dollars. After the relocation of people and businesses, agencies cleaned each location to clear the existing heap of trash. It was a massive exercise. Cleanup operations in Chinatown alone took 3 months, and the government removed 390 tons of waste. Following the cleanup, a massive rodent control operation was launched to eradicate rats and other pests in the area. The rivers were dredged to clean the stream bed. Their systematic planning and execution of cleaning rivers, which involved spending nearly $300 million, were successful, and both pelagic and benthic aquatic life returned to these rivers. The BOD of the Singapore River was 11 in 1978, which decreased to 4 in 1985, and the BOD value of Kaling River was 76 in 1978. It was reduced to 4 in 1985. All other rivers also displayed positive change. By 1983, fishes and prawns returned to these rivers. In 1987, 2 dolphins were spotted in the Geylang River. And in September, the ENV celebrated the project's success with an event called Clean River Commemoration. The clean rivers not only provided water security, but also conferred a positive impact on the economic and environmental conditions of Singapore. Among the reservoirs, Marina Barrage is the most innovative one and can be termed as an engineering marvel. The plan was actually started from the idea of a dam by Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew in Marina Channel. When constructed, it served 3 purposes: water storage, alleviating flooding, and providing a recreation center. During the monsoon period, Singapore receives torrential rains, which creates the risk of flooding in downtown areas like Chinatown. Even though tidal barriers are common and used in many locations like London, the construction of a 350-meter Marina barrage was a real challenge. To provide an 11-meter-high cofferdam that could withstand strong hydrostatic and wave pressures at a site with 2 layers of marine clay increased its complexity. When completed, it became the first reservoir in the heart of Singapore, with a catchment area of 10,000 hectares. The working of this barrage is also complex. The 350-meter-wide barrage has 9 30-meter-wide, hydraulically operated steel crest gates, and each gate weighs 70 tons. Under normal conditions, the gates remain closed to prevent seawater from entering freshwater. In the event of heavy rain coupled with a low tide, the gates will open to release excess water into the sea. If the tide is high, 6 pumps, along with 1 standby pump, will pump 227 cubic meters of water per second into the sea. These pumps can transfer water to the Upper Pierce Reservoir if required. In the event of a power outage, 3 4.3 megawatt generators will provide power to continue their operation. The government also devised an ingenious idea to raise awareness about the importance of reservoirs. They encourage people to engage in various water sports and recreational activities, such as kayaking in reservoirs like Marina Barrage. The PUB even officially celebrated the arrival of its millionth visitor to the Marina Barrage. These celebrations create news, which in turn reminds people about the relevance of clean water. The PUB also came with a program named ABC, or Active, Beautiful, and Clean Water Program, to educate people on the importance of water and the sense of shared ownership in April 2006. This initiative radically transformed Singapore's water canals and reservoirs into beautiful rivers and lakes. ABC helped to overcome the public's mindset. Most people kept a distance from amenities to maintain clean and fresh water. This new program encouraged people to use it wisely. A BC water design, features like rain gardens are not only aesthetically pleasing, but also help to manage rainwater sustainably. With this program, even concrete canals are transformed into naturalized rivers. They also utilized various bioengineering techniques to convert canals into naturalized rivers, and this was the first time that such solutions were explored in a tropical climate. The changes encouraged the growth of flora and fauna and helped Singapore to transform itself into a place of water and gardens. Singapore is a country with a tropical climate, which receives heavy rain. So, the country maintains a separate drain for rainwater, and this water will reach reservoirs without getting contaminated. The country has already built extensive sewerage, pumping stations, and treatment plants by spending 400 million Singapore dollars to avoid the mixing of clear water with fresh water. By 1992, a network of 2,300 kilometers of sewer lines and 6 major treatment plants had been developed. The government also encouraged factories to follow less polluting processes. The government also installed pH monitoring stations to check effluent discharges, and violators were prosecuted. Now, Singapore maintains a sewerage network of 3,600 kilometers. They also developed a deep tunnel sewerage system of 206 kilometers, with $10 billion to transfer water entirely by gravity to a centralized recycling plant located in coastal areas. Now, Singapore is attempting to develop rain monitoring using CCTV and a deep learning model based on VGG-19 to enhance rainfall prediction, improve rainwater drainage efficiency, and optimize the deployment of flood management resources. These measures help them protect their water as fresh and clean as possible. Desalinated water is another major source of potable water on the island of Singapore, and it is the third tap of 4 national tap strategies. PUB has been considering the desalination process since 1970, but its cost has made them postpone this idea. It was 10 times more expensive when compared to reservoir water, and this high expense forced PUB to keep the plan in abeyance. Later, in 1995, Singapore found out that desalination could be done in a financially viable way, and Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Malta were already producing desalinated water. 3 years later, Singapore built a test desalination plant through a joint effort between Singapore Power, Aquagen, and Singapore Technologies. In September 2005, the Sing Spring plant became the island's first desalination plant to supply water to the local community. Keppel Marina East Plant is the first large-scale dual-mode desalination plant in Singapore. At present, Singapore uses reverse osmosis, which requires about 3.5 kilowatt hours per cubic meter, and 5 plants produce desalinated water. These RO plants received many awards, including the Global Awards Desalination Plant of 2019 and the Most Innovative Water Energy Nexus Award of 2019. PUB attempts to offset the carbon produced as pollution by utilizing large-scale floating solar panels at reservoirs such as Tengah and Pandan, as well as through carbon capture using experimental methods. The most innovative strategy for freshwater supply was their decision to consider the possibility of recycling water instead of discharging it to the sea. The first experimental plant in Singapore was started in 1974, but closed in 1975 due to technical and financial barriers. The high cost and unreliable nature of the membrane at that time were the major limitations. In 1998, Singapore's Ministry of the Environment and PUB launched a study to conceptualize water reclamation. A prototype plant started its trial operation in 2000 at the former Bedok treatment plant. The Bedok plant produced 2.2 million gallons of water per day. Later, this new solution to reclaim water became a jewel in the water supply diversification strategy. The government tested the water quality using 20,000 tests and 190 parameters. The results were excellent and declared safe for drinking. In fact, it met the water quality standards of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the World Health Organization. Singapore's water agency branded its safe, reclaimed water as NEWater and began production in 2002. NEWater is high-grade reclaimed water produced from treated used water that is further purified using advanced membrane technologies, making it ultra-clean and safe to drink. Now, 4 new water plants supply, on average, 30% of Singapore's water and produce 440 million gallons of water per day. By 2000, NEWater is expected to meet up to 55% of future water demand. Singapore has a centralized approach to the recycling of water, and the core technology behind the production of NEWater is pressure-driven reverse osmosis. This technology allows particle separation primarily by size exclusion through pores ranging between zero point 0.2 and zero point 0.4 nanometers. The result is a solid-free permeate, free from emerging contaminants, metals, microbes, and salts. Then, the permeate is allowed to undergo UV treatment to eliminate any microbial contaminants. This recycled water is so pure that alkaline chemicals are added to restore the pH balance. Another advantage of NEWater is it is a cost-effective process. A cubic meter of water, which meets WHO standards, is created at a cost of less than 0.2 Singapore dollars. Currently, a portion of NEWater is utilized by industries, particularly companies that require ultra-pure water, while the remainder enters the reservoir. Apart from the electronics industry, there are also non-electronic industries, such as Capital Tower, Keppel, Shell, Changi Airport, and Pratt and Whitney use NEWater. In the initial stage, the government's biggest problem was Singapore's acceptance of NEWater. For this, the government devised a brilliant plan. Singapore launched an extensive campaign, and it resulted in widespread acceptance of NEWater. The leadership, including Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, became the ambassador of NEWater. Then Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong himself drank a bottle of NEWater in front of the media immediately after a tennis match. After the launch of the campaign, within 6 months, around 1.5 million bottles of NEWater were distributed at public events. During the National Day celebrations of 2002, the Prime Minister, other leaders, and 60,000 people drank NEWater, the pride of Singapore. PUB used media effectively to sensitize people about their new product. These efforts finally worked. A survey by Forbes Research at the end of 2002 proved that 98% of people accepted it, and another study in 2015 showed about 74% of Singaporeans accepted NEWater. Singapore didn't stop there. They are aware of the value of fresh water and the importance of storing water without contamination. So, they continuously monitor the water standards to plug out any chance of contamination, mainly due to algae blooms. Now, they are monitoring not only with conventional techniques, but also with the help of artificial intelligence-based automated recognition and counting systems. Another cost-effective technique for monitoring the water quality of reservoirs is assessing the health of aquatic life and the benthic quality index for Singapore reservoirs. Now, they are trying to streamline the biomonitoring process using a DNA-based method. In this method, DNA will be extracted from sample water and sequenced for species identification. This method is called biomonitoring using water eDNA, or water environmental DNA. Another important strategy devised by PUB was the 10-liter challenge. This was launched to encourage every person to reduce their daily water consumption by 10 liters. Thanks to these conservation strategies, the daily per capita domestic water consumption was reduced to 154 liters in 2010 and 141 in 2019. Now, PUB is aiming to achieve a result of 130 liters by the year 2030. They also launched a 10% challenge to raise awareness and improve water efficiency. A study by PUB revealed that a flow rate of 2 liters per minute in public taps was sufficient for normal washing purposes. So they advised reviewing and reducing water-fitting flow rates in their public and staff toilets. The implementation of the Water Efficiency Labeling Scheme, the Mandatory Water Efficiency Labeling Scheme, and the Water Efficiency Fund also helped them to find a water solution. Most of us take water resources for granted, and, in reality, water scarcity is increasing. Singapore was well aware of its limitations, so it planned and acted accordingly. This resulted in solving the water crisis. Copying a plan from one country to another will not work due to factors such as climate conditions. For example, Singapore once tried to hire a consultant from Israel, but it didn't go well. Their expertise in the Mediterranean climate was not suited to the tropical climate. After this experience, Singapore attempted to devise plans that suited the country's conditions. Thank you for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, please share the video with your friends. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel, and you never miss out on forthcoming content. Now it's your turn. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because we would like to hear your suggestions. See you in the next video.